The Dragon Age franchise has had its ups and downs, with Dragon Age 2 being the most controversial game in the series, and its sequel, Inquisition, being a mixed bag. Shacknews got the privilege to play nearly a full day of the newest entry, Veilguard, at EA Studios. Is this the Dragon Age we've all been waiting for?
Maybe.
Find out in our preview. The wait for the latest chapter of the Dragon Age saga has been an excruciating one for fans. Once it finally arrives in a few weeks, it will pick up right where Inquisition left off. When Electronic Arts and BioWare unveiled Dragon Age the Veilguard back in June, they revealed a Thedas in peril. The danger looked to be coming from Solas, who sought to use his magic to tear down the veil between worlds. Thanks to a playable character Rook and his companions, Solas' ritual ultimately fails. The aftermath is what players will experience in Dragon Age the Veilguard. I got to try out several hours of Dragon Age the Veilguard, starting with the game's prologue. It unfolded just as it did when it was first shown behind closed doors at this year's Summer Game Fest. Those interested in the details can check out our last preview, but to sum things up, Rook and his party were able to find Solas in Minrathous. Solas attempted a ritual to shatter the veil, but was ultimately stopped. However, the result unleashed a new terrible threat in the form of two elven gods. Elganon and Gillenane, collectively known as the Evanurus, were trapped in the Fade, but the outcome of the ritual has resulted in them essentially swapping places with Solas. Because Rook bled at the sight of the failed ritual, Solas is able to communicate with them through the Fade. Solas makes his case that the ritual was meant to reinforce the god's captivity. In typical Dragon Age fashion, players can decide through dialogue choices whether they choose to believe Solas or not, but the end result is still the same. The elven gods are loose, and they're looking to control the world. Solas doesn't have the ritual dagger, so he can't escape his captivity, which means Rook and his party must be the ones to deal with the gods.
Elganon and Gillenane are your problem to solve. This is your responsibility now.
The new feature on display was the central hub located within the Fade. The lighthouse will act as a gateway to various points of interest across Thedas. Between main missions, players can spend time in the lighthouse getting to know their companions. As one might imagine, Rook standing with his companions and the conversations he'll have with them will vary across the player base. For example, I entered the lighthouse with mage companion Nevgalis injured as a result of how I handled the prologue. Others could enter the lighthouse sequence with a different outcome, namely returning dwarf companion Lace Harding being the one who was injured in the fight with Solas.
Let's go, Harding. Nev, keep the demons off us.
You got it.
As far as companions go, the Veilguard will allow players to fully explore their own stories, motivations, and plot lines. I only got a taste of it during my time with the game with Neve, Harding, and the third companion named Lucanus. I became most familiar with Lucanus' story arc, something helped by the handy coincidence that my character's origin also made him part of the Antivan Crows. Lucanus is a key member of the Crows, but one who is struggling with the inner curse. Over time, players can come to familiarize themselves with Lucanus' internal struggle, as well as his mission to his clan.
He's possessed by a demon.
It's complicated.
Other companions will have similar arcs, with many of them belonging to various factions that will be encountered over the course of the story. Of course, players are welcome to choose whether they see companion arcs through or not. It'll be good for team building because part of the Dragon Age experience means that some decisions will prove popular with some teammates and infuriate others. There's a particularly consequential decision that players will have to make a few hours into the game's first act. Whatever the player chooses will have a major effect on various parts of Thedas, while also affecting how some of their companions see them from that point forward. Head of video Greg Burke and I chose two distinct paths, and can confirm that our Veilguard experiences were noticeably different from there. Part of this includes what side quests become available, as some might open up while others get closed off depending on the critical choice made. As far as my companion experience went, I had some work to do to get some of them to see Rook in a positive light again. Part of endearing yourself to companions means letting them tag along on quests. Only 2 companions can join Rook at a time, and each offer various benefits in battle. Some companions can also help traverse certain parts of the world, but don't worry too much if you don't have a companion you need to open a specific area. In some cases, it will be possible to summon companions remotely to make use of their traversal abilities.
What are...
The demon pulled all of that from the Fade.
I'm as surprised as you.
From a combat standpoint, players can expect capable action RPG battles in Dragon Age the Veilguard. There weren't many classes to choose from my time with the game. I opted for the Rogue. though there were options to play as a warrior and a mage. However, the constellation skill trees for each of these 3 classes were vast and branched off toward different specializations based on the player's preferred style. Players can unlock class skills, passive abilities, stat boost, or weapon-based attacks. Speaking of the last one, different weapons will open the door to potentially new sets of attacks. Working with the controller, I was able to mix together light attacks, heavy attacks, unique class abilities, and companion attacks with button combinations. But a new ability wheel feature will also be available for those who'd rather use that. Experimentation will be encouraged throughout the game, and it's possible to refund skill points in order to go down a completely different skill tree path. As much as I enjoyed blowing up enemies and controlling crowds with my saboteur specialization, I would have liked to see how melee combat would be affected by going the duelist route.
That was the last one.
Unfortunately, there's so much to do in the Veilguard, and there was so little time available. Stopping Solas' ritual, freeing the gods, saving some parts of Thedas, watching others fall, and getting to know some of my companions was a full day's work. It was stunning to hear at the end of the day that this was merely all a part of the first act. EA and BioWare have much more planned for the rest of the story, as in typical of BioWare, will ultimately depend on the player and whatever they decide. Dragon Age: The Veilguard will come to PC, PlayStation 5, and Xbox Series X and S on Thursday, October 31st. Hey folks, if you enjoyed this video preview, be sure to hit that like, subscribe, notification button. It's 3 small clicks for you, but means the world to us. For more previews and reviews, you're already in the right place. You're on Shacknews.com.